Dear Abby, we've never met before, so this may seem a bit odd, but I feel this is necessary. My name's Jay, for starters. I work at the checkout line at the grocery store up on the 67th Street. You know, the one with the parking lot that's way too big for the store itself? Yeah, that's the one. I'm 24, fairly tall, and I have a rather scraggly appearance. You probably wouldn't recognize me if I came up to talk to you. I don't have that very memorable face. I don't really know why I'm telling you all this, to be honest, but this isn't the point of me writing you. I was working late at night yesterday. It was a very average day for the most part. Nothing too exciting happened, but you'd be surprised of how interesting this job can get at times. I've been reading some book that guy had worked the counter shift before me and left. It was some really crappy murder mystery, chock full of cliches and utterly boring if you ask me, but it's something to do, I guess. When you showed up, though, my whole night changed. I don't know exactly what it was about you that caught my attention at first, but as soon as I saw you, I just got this odd feeling, a weird mix between excitement and terror. That's the best way I can describe it, at least. I saw you walk into my line, and I quickly composed myself. I'd been slouching down in my chair for a while since I rarely ever got anyone in my line. But it was only when you got closer that I realized what about you had caught my attention. You were absolutely beautiful. You walked up and said, "Hey," and handed me your card. I could tell by the way you were talking and the way you looked that you were very sleep-deprived, though. This wasn't surprising, considering how late it was. After a second or two of awkward silence, I realized that you greeted me. I suddenly forced out a "hi" in response. I cursed myself out mentally for that one. I sat there for a second, trying to focus. "What's your name?" I said. It was only later that I realized how odd this may have seemed. What kind of grocery bag guy asks what someone's name is? I'm glad I did it, though. I remember you said your name was Abigail, but that you go by Abby for short. Abby, it seemed to fit so perfectly. The name seemed to roll off my tongue as I said it back to myself silently. It was like sweet honey. It just felt good as I said it. You seemed to be perplexed as when I looked back at you, and I wondered if I'd done something to upset you. "Shouldn't you be packing those?" you said, and pointed to your groceries. Suddenly I was shocked and embarrassed. I looked up and apologized and clumsily started shoving groceries into bags as fast as I could. I couldn't believe myself. How stupid can I be? But when I looked up, I realized you were laughing. "You're kind of cute," you said. I tried to play it off cool, but I was absolutely thrilled. A girl like this, I thought I was cute. "You are too," I said, as I hastily packed the rest of the groceries. As you walked out, you turned around as you reached the door and said, "Have a good night." I'm guessing I looked pretty stupid writing all this down. You probably still remember it. I mean, it did just happen yesterday, but I went home ecstatic that night, and with all the confidence in the world. I feel like it's almost unreal writing it back here. Anyways, I wanted to write you this letter, Abby, to tell you that I love you. I don't know what it was I felt that night. It was some weird mix of emotions, but all I know is that even in the small little transaction we had, I felt as though there was something between us. Please write me back soon. Dear Abby, sincerely. It's been a week since I sent my last letter, and I still haven't gotten a response, but that doesn't matter. How have you been? My life's just been normal as usual. Get up, go to work, go to bed. I live in a real crappy apartment, but I guess that's what you get when you work as a grocery bagger. I thought about you a lot lately, and I sometimes wonder if you still remember me. I saw you again today at work. This time it was at a more reasonable hour. Thankfully, I didn't want to bother you to see you approach me on your own. You came to my line again, which made me feel absolutely thrilled. This time I was less nervous. I was going to act normal no matter what you did or said. I wasn't going to let a girl like you slip through my fingers. As you walked up, you muttered something that was too quiet for me to make out, and I waited at the end of the counter for me to finish packing your groceries. This obviously wasn't what I expected, but it wasn't all too bad, and you didn't seem to feel anything at all. Actually, I was expecting you to either come up and talk to me or avoid me like the plague, but instead you just walked on through as if I was another stranger. Makes me wonder if you got my last letter. You should check your mailbox more often. There was one moment where I felt something, though. I looked over briefly to see what you were doing, and at the same time you seemed to look up at me, to see how far along I was. Right then, our eyes locked. Only for a second or two, but in those 2 seconds, I saw so much more in you than I had seen last time. I felt as if I had known you for years, like I knew all your intricate feelings and emotions. Did you feel anything like that with me? Shortly after I finished packing your bags, you paid and walked out. Obviously, this was a pretty normal process for me, considering I do it about 50 times every day. But I had been determined since that night. I wrote you that letter. The next time I saw you, I was going to get more out of it. I'm kind of screwing that one up. I wasn't satisfied with it. I had to have more. There's a little room in the very back left corner of the grocery store, designed for staff. And there, though, I knew they kept all the security footage from the day. All staff informed of this in security camera locations where they're hired. Luckily for me, there's one position right next to my counter. I waited until the store closed and everybody left, and then I went in. After flipping through the few of TV screens, I found the one that was connected to the camera by my counter. I rewinded it until about I remember you coming in. After a few minutes of scanning, I found it. There you were. I paused the best still shot I could find. I knew the camera wouldn't do you justice, but it was the best I could have for now. Having a longer look at you, realized how truly perfect you were. Every feature on your body, your hair, your face, your legs, your chest was just perfection. I rewound the tape when you first came up to my line a few times. I couldn't help myself. My eyes were glued to the screen. After a few minutes of consideration, I popped out the tape and shoved it in my pocket, and I drove home. I knew I wasn't allowed to. I couldn't very well be fired for taking such actions, but I couldn't help myself. I had to have you with me at all times, even if it means losing my job. Abby, I love you. I love everything about you. I think you constantly now. Do you feel the same way about me, Abby? I just want us to be together forever. Right back soon. Yours truly, Jay. Dear Abby, it's been 3 days and I still haven't gotten a reply. Why don't you want to talk to me? I'm still unsure if you got my last 2 letters. Please tell me if you have. So I got fired from my job. They found the missing tape. I got a call from the store owner, my boss, at 6 a.m. on Monday, and was told to come in immediately. They were having a mandatory all-staff meeting. When I got there, all the staff was gathered around a small table with the owner at the head of it. Once everyone had arrived, he told us apparently there had been a minor robbery yesterday. They had about $200 worth of stuff taken from them. And the one tape that would have shown who the culprit was the one I had taken. Just my luck. He told us that no one was going to leave the room until someone confessed it. After a few minutes, I finally gave in. I told him everything about how I felt, as if it was me and you had some kind of connection. After explaining the whole story, the entire room was staring at me, wide-eyed at me. After I finished, I sat there in silence for several seconds. Suddenly, the store owner broke the tension. Jay, you're fired. Get out of here now and don't come back, he said. I did as I was told and got out there as fast as I could. That stupid prick! He's always treated me like crap. He's been on my case since the day I got this job. I swear he's just been waiting for me to do this little thing that could justify firing me. The one time I slip up, he finds out. Why didn't he understand, though? Does he get that you and I were meant for each other? Any rational man would have understood. Anyone put in my situation would have done that, right? I've been searching you up a lot lately. With no job, I have all the time in the world to spend learning about you. Do you know how much you can find about with someone with just a first name and a town of residence? I found out your last name. Merritt. What a beautiful name. Abby Merritt. I can't help but say it aloud whenever I think about you. I also found you're 24 and you only live a mile away from me. I drove down to your apartment complex today. It looks very nice. Much nicer than where I live. I asked to see you multiple times, but I was told you weren't there every time. I felt more and more discovered every time, but I was determined to see you again. After a few hours of asking, I decided to stay back in the parking lot for a while waiting for you to come back. And after many hours of waiting, you did. It was late at night, around 10, I believe. I saw you pull up in your car and get out. Felt a sudden rush of warmth at seeing your face again. I know the security camera tape to look at, but it doesn't compare to seeing you in real life. I made sure to record it for later when I was at home, this time with a much higher quality camera. I wanted to capture as much detail as possible. I didn't know the next time I would see you, and the security tape wasn't enough for me anymore. I asked the woman at the front desk multiple times what your number was, but she refused to tell me. She thought I was some sort of creep. See, Abby, these people don't understand us. They don't understand what we feel for each other. I ended up waiting in the parking lot a little while longer until someone came out. After talking to him about it, he told me your apartment number was. He didn't want to talk at first, but I made him. You'd be surprised what you can make people tell you when you're holding a knife to their chest. Don't worry, I didn't hurt him too bad, but we can't have someone interfering with us. Don't you agree, Abby? I'm sick of all these people trying to keep us apart. I ended up watching you from the parking lot for a while. Once I found out your room number and how the rooms in this complex were organized, it wasn't hard to locate it. You should be more careful about shutting your blinds, you know. I was easily able to watch you from the parking lot. I couldn't get out of the head anymore. All I do is watch that video that I took of you over and over, Abby. I want to be with you forever. I want to wake up in the morning to see you next to me in bed. I cannot wait until the next time I see you again. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, I have some really exciting news, Abby. I'm moving in with you. Aren't you excited? We can spend hours and hours and hours together. It'll be just perfect. Let me explain. My job paid just enough so I can make rent and pay for food every week, but because of this, I have little to no money in savings, nowhere near enough to last a very long time. When you take that money of flow away, it doesn't take very much time until you have nothing left. I was able to get by for a few days, but just today I got evicted. This could actually be better than I had originally thought. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy that gave me your room number has been able to contact the police by now. This way they won't be able to find me, and we get to spend all the time in the world together. It's perfect, isn't it? I made sure to bring all my tapes and photos I've taken with me, though, and my cameras, of course. You should really tell me who's ever managing your apartment complex to get better staff. I was able to get by the security easily. I went up to the room and knocked on the door, but I got no answer, so I decided to get in by other means. After scanning the footage I took from the last night over a few times, I noticed that you had a ventilation shaft in the corner of your room. Not surprising, considering how hot it can be in the summer here. I figured there had to be some kind of maintenance hatch that I could get in through. After a few minutes of looking around, I found the door at the end of your hall that seemed to be some kind of staff room, and luckily there was a way into the vents there. I crawled through them until I got into your room and was very cramped and hard to move around in, but I managed. When I got there, though, I felt a rush of success. I figured that since the lights were out, I couldn't see you, that you weren't home. But I'm patient. I scanned every part of your room, trying to memorize all the intricate details. Your scent overwhelmed me when I sat there. I'd caught it briefly during the 2 times I saw you at the store, but never this strong. It was mesmerizing. I couldn't quite place my finger on it, but it reminded me of something. It's almost like peaches. I sat there hunched over there for a few hours, though I taught myself to be extremely patient. I can sit completely motionless for hours at a time, not moving a muscle. No one was going to notice me. Then you finally got home. I felt a wide smile form on my face. The second I heard the door open, there you were, my love, of course. You took no notice to my presence. The light in your room seemed to be angled perfectly so I could see everything in the vent. After the first few inches, I tried to contain my excitement, but I started breathing very heavily. I tried covering it up as best as I could, but it was hard. You suddenly looked right at the vent. I went completely silent. After a few seconds, though, you seemed to lose interest. This made me smile. This was the perfect spot. I could tell I had startled you, though, as though the night you were turning over in your sleep to look at the vent. People seem to have a sense for when they're being watched. It could send them into complete panic. Don't try to fake it, Abby. I can tell when someone's awake. When someone truly scared sleep because impossible.
Dear Abby,
why are you so scared anyways? It's just me.
I didn't sleep a wink.
Why would I scare you? You do love me, right?
I spent the
You know I love you.
night watching
I'm
you.
looking forward to spending
Couldn't help
every
it.
day with you.
Anytime
now,
I
Abby.
tried to look away, my
Right
eyes
back
seemed to
if
be
you
drawn
can.
back a few seconds
Love,
later.
Jay.
You look even more amazing when you're sleeping, you know. You'd be surprised how much you can learn about a person's personality by watching them sleep. I was tempted to get out of the vent to get a better view of you multiple times in the night, but I resisted that urge. I couldn't have you figuring out what was here. Not yet, at least. You seemed to spend a lot of time in your bathroom in the morning. I assumed you were taking a shower or putting on makeup. Why would you do that, Abby? Anything you could do to change the way you naturally look would only cover up your true beauty. Why would you want to do that? Why don't you want the whole world to see what I see in you? You left shortly after the work, or at least that's what I assumed. After careful consideration, I decided to leave the vent. I slid my hand through one of the slits and felt around for one of the bolts. The surface of the vent was very smooth, which made them very easy to find. I grabbed onto one and twisted as hard as I could and finally was able to pop it off. I did this with all the other bolts and finally removed the grating. The first thing I did was go over to the bathroom. I quickly disposed of anything I could find that you could use to mask your face. That stuff disgusted me. The way everyone gets to see how truly you are. I also found something in there, your hairbrush. I grabbed it and brought it close to my face to examine it. It was a dull blue with a thick, rounded handle. But that wasn't what interested me. The hairs. That's what made me so interested. I took a good few minutes to pull out every one of them so I could see them and them up on the counter. I counted them. I got 59. This pleased me greatly. I quickly scooped them up and put them in my pocket. I spent the rest of the day going through your stuff to learn more about you, your interests and such. I take it that you're a big movie fan, Abby. I found your collection in the back of your closet. I have to say it was quite impressive. I found something else in there that made me mad. A picture of you with another man. It disgusted me just looking at him, holding you like he owned you. I'm the one that can have you, Abby. No one else. At about 8:30, I considered staring to get back into that vent, since there's usually about when you get back from work. Then I had another idea. I looked at your bed. The blankets hung low enough to the floor that you couldn't see underneath the bed unless they were lifted up. I first screwed the vent grating back on and slowly slid under with a smile on my face and waited for you to get home. When you finally came in, you looked completely pale, and I noticed someone else came in behind you. They were talking to you about hearing noises from your room throughout the day. I mentally yelled at myself. I needed to be more careful from now on. Going under the bed had been a good idea, though, since you obviously first thought there was to check the vent. You thanked the person and they left. Finally, you and I were alone. I sat there in silence until you went to bed. It seemed to be an eternity before you did. I wanted to get a closer look at you tonight, and this was my chance. You got into bed and turned off the lights. I was cautious, though. I waited for hours to make sure you were asleep, and when I was sure you were, I slowly slid out from under the bed and I saw you there. You looked absolutely stunning. Every curve of your body was perfect. Every little detail was beautiful. I was in awe just looking at you. I reached out my hand and I started to stroke your face. It was soft like silk. I found myself starting to get your beauty. It was overwhelming. I slowly reached down. I couldn't help it. Everything about you was perfect. Suddenly, you seemed to turn and start to wake up. Horrified, I quickly slid back onto your bed, trying to be quiet as possible. A few seconds I saw you get out of bed and look around. I could sense your fear even without looking at you. You should feel calm with me around you, Abby. I'll protect you, Abby. No one will ever touch you but me. I'd kill someone for you, Abby. I make sure to pay attention today. You didn't bring in my letter from yesterday or any mail at all. You must just not check your mailbox. I'm going to change that, though. I'm going to leave this one on your desk tomorrow. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm making something special for you. Check it in your closet after you read this. Yours forever, Jay. Dear Abby, I spent more time today working on the surprise while you were at work. You're really gonna love it, Abby. I've put a lot of work into it, you know. I've spent a few hours today putting the finishing touches on it, and I think it's finally ready for you to see. You got home at about 8:30 again, and saw the letter laying on your desk almost immediately. I started to smile as I saw you open it, waiting to see your reaction. It was really quite interesting watching your face. I could see you had all different emotions and thoughts. You seemed to be confused at first, then shocked and horrified. You started to shake violently, and I saw that you were starting to cry. Do you not like me, Abby? Why are you crying? Don't you love me? Don't you love me, Abby? Everything after that was a blur. You looked over to the closet while still sobbing. You seemed to be contemplating whether to open it or not. Instead, you ran past it and opened the door. When you came back, you had all my letters in your hand and started going through them. At some point, you seemed to break down and curl up on the floor. Tears still rolling down your face. I could see you were desperately trying to say something, anything, but you were paralyzed in fear. After about 10 minutes, I saw you look under the bed, in the vent, anywhere I could be. You see, though, Abby, I'm smarter than that. I knew you'd look in those places. I found a better place. After I finished your surprise, you'll never find me here. No one will. Isn't it great? I can watch you forever and ever, and there's nothing you or anyone can do about it. You haven't found your surprise yet, though, Abby, and I could tell you were still thinking about it. I saw you look over to the closet. I know you wanted to open it, but at the same time, you were nervous what was going to be in it. What would you find? This couldn't last forever, though. You and I both knew that. I watched you slowly walk over to the closet, fumbling with the handle and trying to get a firm grasp on it. Suddenly, you flung the doors open and saw it. It was a scrapbook of me and you. I saw you flipping through the pages. You seemed to be shocked. Do you not like it, Abby? I got pictures of you when you weren't looking, pictures of you sleeping, pictures of you at your computer. I scattered the hairs I'd collected throughout it along with the pictures of couples together, of course, with our faces on them, though. I got the pictures of you with the other guy, and I put it at very back, except I didn't leave it like it normally was. I scratched that little prick's face off. I hate him so much. If I knew who he was, I would hunt him down and make him suffer. Don't you get it, Abby? No one can have you but me. Me and you were meant for each other, no one else. I watched you sob for another 30 minutes, then you got up and ran out of your apartment. Shortly after, you came back with multiple policemen. This shocked me. Do you not like the surprise, Abby? Why would you bring these people into our room? They'll never find me, or where I am. But if they do, it could ruin everything. All my work from the last week would be nothing. You wouldn't want that, right, Abby? I'm exhausted from the day's work. As much as I love you, I need sleep, Abby. Have a good night. I love you. Love, Jay. Dear Abby, do you see what you've done, Abby? Do you see what you've done? I woke up at 8 a.m. to see you frantically packing your bags. I was confused at first, but then I understood. You were leaving me. You don't love me. You don't love me. How could you do this to me, Abby? You were the only thing I wanted in life. I had nothing else to live for, but when I first met you, I saw a shimmer of hope. I thought that I'd finally have reason to wake up in the morning and go on with my crappy life, and you went and threw that away. How could you do this to me, Abby? A few seconds after you left the room, I got out of the hiding spot and followed behind you. I saw you throw your bags in the back and then get in the car and start it. I wasn't going to let you get away though, Abby. I would never let that. I ran as fast as I could to get to your car and smashed out the window, and I dragged you out. Do you really think you could get away from me, Abby? I had to hit you over the head to knock you out. You were making too much noise. Someone that doesn't understand could have seen and ruined everything. Well, I have a plan for you reacted like this. I drove out to the storage unit at the edge of town. I reserved a slot that day and I decided to move in with you. I drove up and unlocked it. I grabbed you and carried you inside with me. It had only been a few minutes, so you were still unconscious. I made sure to check, though, your pockets to make sure you didn't have your phone with you. I sat you down at the very back of the small room, and then I got in and lowered the door. I called the owner at the storage unit and told him that I had to visit my lot, and the other day I'd forgotten to lock it, and asked him if he wouldn't mind locking it up for me. Of course he said yes, and I hung up, and I threw the phone to the ground and stomped on it to make sure that it'd never work again. Shortly later, I heard the owner come up and lock the door. About an hour later, I saw you start to get up. I first heard a very faint grunt, then I saw your legs start to move. Shortly after you were fully awake, when you saw my face, you started to scream, which then subsided to a whine and then a whimper. That's when you saw it. The only other thing in the room, my knife, it was obvious why it was there, and after a second or two of realization, you jumped and grabbed it. I looked you dead in the eyes and said, "Abby, I love you." And then I felt the searing pain of the knife being driven to my side. I felt it being pulled out and jabbed back in with great force. I could feel it going in each time. Like a fire burning a hole through my chest, I fell to the floor, laughing while coughing up blood. I saw you back away, trembling, and sit back down in the corner. And now as I sit here in the puddle of my own blood writing this, I wonder how you'll go out. Will you use the knife to take your own life? Or will you let starvation take you? Either way, we'll be together in death, Abby. Together from the day I saw you, till the day we both died, just as I wanted it. As you sat there crying, I can tell you've come to this realization, Abby. This is all I ever wanted, and for that I have to say thank you. Love, Jay.